It is 92 degrees outside my workshop right now, and I am standing 6 feet from a box fan with 4 frozen jugs draped across the back of it, watching my thermometer drop 1 degree at a time. It is $18 for the fan I already owned, and about $1 in ordinary table salt to make this work the way I am about to show you. In less than 20 minutes, the air coming off this fan will be cold enough that you would swear I had a window unit hidden behind it. It will not run up your electric bill. It will not need a single dollar spent on a new machine. It will not put any chemicals into your home that you would not already keep in your kitchen cabinet. It will not damage your fan if you follow the 2 rules I am about to give you. It will not flood your floor if you remember the 1 towel I tell you to put down. And it will not put your children or your animals in any danger, so long as you respect the safety step I give you before anything else. My name is Hosteler. I am Amish. I keep a farm in Lancaster County with my wife Miriam and our 4 children, 6 hogs, 2 dozen laying hens, and a garden Miriam has tended since before we were married. And in every one of the summers I have lived through on this land, through hay season heat that has put grown men flat on their backs, this house and this workshop have never once gone without a way to cool down. And we have never once paid a power company a single extra dollar to do it. What I am going to show you today is not a modern invention. It is an old trick, updated for a fan instead of a spring house. And once you understand the 1 piece of chemistry underneath it, you will be able to build it out of things you likely already own, sitting in a drawer or a junk box right now. Before I show you how to build it, I want you to understand 3 things that are going to matter to you before this video is through. The first is what is actually happening physically to make cold air come off a fan with no compressor and no refrigerant anywhere near it. Because once you understand that, you will never look at a hot room the same way again. The second is a mistake almost everyone makes the first time they try this, one that either ruins the fan or makes a mess of the floor. And I am going to make sure that does not happen to you. And the third, the one I am not going to explain until we get there, because it is worth waiting for, is a version of this same trick that can keep a house cool for 4 and 5 days straight with no power at all, the way my own family has done it during more than 1 outage on this farm. Let me clear up the mistake first, because if you get this part wrong, nothing else in this video will work right. Most folks here make your own air conditioner and picture something complicated, coils, chemicals, a machine you would have to buy. That is not what is happening here, and it is not what was ever happening in an ice house either. A fan does not cool the air by itself, it only moves air. What cools the air is something cold sitting directly in that moving stream, and the fan's whole job is to keep pulling fresh, warm air across that cold surface, over and over, faster than the room could ever do it standing still. That is the entire secret. You are not inventing cold. You are simply forcing warm air to give up its heat to something colder, again and again, thousands of times a minute, and blowing the results straight at yourself. My grandfather, who kept an ice house on this same farm before any of us were born, used to say that cold does not travel on its own. You have to carry it to where you need it. A fan is simply a faster pair of hands than his ever were. Now, once you understand that, the whole build becomes obvious. You need 2 things, a fan and something cold to put in its path. Here is how my family has always done both parts. For the fan itself, it does not matter what kind you have sitting around. An old desk fan works. A standing floor fan works. A box fan works best of all if you have one, because it can carry the most cooling for the longest stretch of time. I will explain why in a moment. Whatever you have, that is the one you use. You do not need to buy a new fan for this to work. Before you plug anything in, there is 1 safety rule I want you to follow, and I am not going to skip past it the way some folks might be tempted to. You are about to be running water and ice directly beside an electric motor, and that means moisture is a real possibility, however careful you are. Plug your fan into an outlet with a ground fault interrupter, the kind with the little test and reset buttons built in, the same kind you would find above a bathroom sink. If you do not have one near where you are setting this up, you can buy a portable plug-in version at almost any hardware store for a few dollars, and I would consider that money as necessary as the fan itself. If any moisture ever does find its way somewhere it should not, that outlet will cut the power before it becomes a problem. That is not a step to skip to save time. Now, the cold. This is where the dollar I mentioned at the start comes in, and it is the whole reason this works as well as it does. Plain ice will cool a fan's airflow, and if that is all you have, use it. It will still help. But plain ice melts fast, and once it is water instead of ice, it stops doing much of anything for you. My grandmother, who kept the kitchen on this farm for 40 years, knew a trick that farm wives and icehouse keepers have used for generations, long before refrigeration of any kind existed here. Pack your ice in salt, and it will stay solid and stay cold for far longer than ice alone ever would. She used it making ice cream by hand on a Sunday afternoon, packing rock salt around the canister to keep it frozen through the churning. The same exact principle works here. Plain table salt, 3 to 4 tablespoons for every cup to a cup and a half of water you are freezing, mixed in before you freeze it. The salt does not make the water colder by itself. What it does is keep the ice from wanting to melt back into water as quickly, which means the cold stays working for you far longer instead of running off across your floor. That one change, mixing in the salt before you freeze your water, is the difference between a fan that stays cold for 20 minutes and one that stays cold for most of a day. Now let me show you the 2 ways my family builds this, depending on how long you need the cold to last. The first way is for something small, a bedroom, a bathroom, a workshop like the one I am standing in. Take an ordinary plastic jug, the kind you would otherwise throw in the trash, and fill it most of the way with your salted water. Leave a little room at the top because water expands as it freezes, and you do not want a cracked jug on your hands. Freeze it solid. Once it is frozen, you need a way to hang it on the back of your fan. And here my family has used whatever was on hand: a bent picture hanger, a length of cotton rope, a bread tie twisted tight, even a straightened paper clip in a pinch. Whatever you have, the method is the same. Fasten it around the neck of the jug, then hook or tie the other end onto the fan's back grill, letting the jug hang directly behind the blades. Keep it away from the center where the motor sits, both because you do not want moisture anywhere near the motor housing and because a jug sitting too close can be struck by the blades themselves. Test it turning slowly before you ever turn the fan on full. If you have a smaller desk fan, one frozen jug or a couple of the smaller ice pack style ones is plenty. Do not be tempted to hang 3 or 4 of them across the whole back of a small fan. The airflow needs somewhere to pass through, and if you block too much of the grill, you are asking the motor to work harder than it should, which is the second way people ruin a fan trying this. 2 on a small fan. That is the rule. There is a second option here worth mentioning, for those who would rather not freeze their own jugs every time. The store-bought ice packs, the flat kind meant for a cooler, work the same way, and there is one detail about them worth knowing. Most of them are sold hanging on a little display hook in the store, which means the manufacturer has already put a small hole through the top corner for that purpose. That same hole is exactly what you need to hang the pack on your fan without ever puncturing it yourself and risking a leak. A paper clip bent open, slipped through that factory hole, hooked over the fan's back grill, and you are done. The advantage of these over a homemade jug is that you can keep several in the freezer at once, already shaped to hang flat and close against the fan rather than bulging out the way a round jug does. The disadvantage is that you are paying a store for something a repurposed jug and $1 of salt can do just as well. I keep both kinds on hand, honestly. The jugs for the box fan setup and a few of the store ones for quick use on a small fan when I do not want to wait on anything to freeze from scratch. The second way, and the one that will genuinely surprise you, is built for a box fan, and it is the version my family turns to whenever the power itself goes out. Take 4 of the same style jugs. The kind with a built-in carrying handle at the top work best because you will be draping them, not hanging them from a single point. Fill and freeze all 4 the same salted way. When you are ready, lay 2 across the top of the box fan on one side and 2 on the other, so you have jugs hanging down in front of the fan and jugs hanging down behind it, front and back, not just one side. That way the air is being pulled across cold plastic twice on its way through to you, once going in and once coming out. Done this way, with 4 full jugs of salted ice, a single box fan will keep pushing noticeably cooler air for somewhere close to 12 hours before you need to swap the jugs for fresh ones from the freezer dot. Whichever version you build, there is one more thing you cannot skip. Every one of those jugs is going to sweat as it sits there, sometimes heavily, especially here in Pennsylvania, where the air itself carries a good deal of moisture most of the summer. Put a towel down under the fan before you start. If you are somewhere drier, you may not see as much dripping, but I would still set one down the first time just to see how much you are dealing with before you decide you can skip it. And if you have young children or animals who might bump into the fan while it is running, take a moment to steady the base. A scrap board screwed or weighted against the bottom will keep a curious child or an excitable dog from knocking the whole thing over into a puddle of salt water. Here is the part that matters most if you are building this for more than just a hot afternoon. Your freezer holds its cold for longer than most people expect, even without power running to it. Often 2, 3, sometimes 4 or 5 days, depending on how full it is and how often the door gets opened. That means if you have several jugs prepared and frozen ahead of time, sitting ready in the freezer before you ever need them, you can rotate them. Pull the melting ones off the fan, set them back in the freezer or on ice to refreeze, and swap in a fresh set. Open that freezer door as little and as quickly as possible each time, because every second it stands open is cold air you are letting escape. Done this way, a single fan and a handful of jugs can keep a small room livable through several days without power, not just a single afternoon. I want to be honest with you about what this will and will not do, because I have no interest in promising you more than what I have actually seen with my own hands. This will not cool a large open house. It will bring a genuine, noticeable drop to a bedroom, a bathroom, a workshop like mine, a small kitchen, the kind of single room where you actually need to be during the worst of the heat. In this workshop, 16 feet by 16, with no insulation in the walls or the attic above me, on a day that reached 93 degrees outside, this same setup brought the air down from the outside temperature all the way to 70 degrees. That is a real difference, not an exaggeration. But it is a difference for one room, not your whole house. And it will need your attention, refilling water, refreezing jugs, wiping up condensation. It is not a machine you set and forget the way you would a window unit. It asks something of you in return for costing you almost nothing. If you happen to own more than one fan and one of them is the kind that turns side to side on its own, use that one for this. A fan that only blows in one straight line will cool whoever happens to be sitting directly in front of it and little else. A fan that sweeps the room carries that same cold air across more of the space as the minutes pass, and over the course of an hour, you will feel the difference in the whole room, not just in the one chair facing it. It is a small thing, but it is the kind of small thing that separates a setup that merely works from one that actually makes a room comfortable to sit in. I will also tell you plainly that humidity works against you here. The wetter the air already is, the more those jugs are going to sweat, and the harder your towel is going to have to work to keep up. If you live somewhere dry, you may find you barely need the towel at all. Here in Pennsylvania, in the thick of summer, I do not go without one. Now let me tell you why more people have not simply been doing this all along, because I do not believe it is any kind of secret conspiracy, and I want to be plain about that. Nobody sat in a room and decided to keep this from you. It is simpler and, in its own way, sadder than that. A company that sells air conditioners has no reason to teach you a method that costs $1 in salt instead of several $100s for their machine. A power company has no reason to explain how you might use less electricity, not more, on the hottest days of the year, which happen to be the very days they profit the most from your usage. Nobody coordinated any of this. It simply serves everyone's interest, except yours, to let this kind of knowledge quietly fall out of use, generation after generation, until families forget that a spring house or an ice house or a hand-hung jug of salted ice ever kept anyone cool at all. And the money at stake is not small. A household running a window unit or central air through a full hot summer can easily add $60, $80, sometimes over $100 a month to their power bill during the worst stretch of heat. Multiply that across a whole summer, across a whole neighborhood, across a whole country, and you begin to see how much money quietly depends on people never learning that a fan, a jug, and a dollar of salt can do real work on its own, in the one room where it matters most, at almost no cost at all. So before you go, let me put this whole thing back together for you, plain and simple, the way I would explain it to one of my own children. Take whatever fan you already own, plug it into a ground fault outlet, or a portable one if that is what you have, for safety's sake. Fill a plastic jug most of the way with water, stir in 3 to 4 tablespoons of ordinary table salt per cup to a cup and a half, and freeze it solid, leaving room at the top for it to expand. Hang it on the back of a small fan with rope, a bread tie, a bent picture hanger, or a paper clip, keeping it clear of the motor and the blades. For a box fan, use 4 jugs with built-in handles, 2 draped in front and 2 behind, for close to 12 hours of steady cooling. Set a towel underneath for the condensation. Steady the base if there are children or animals nearby. And if you are building this ahead of a storm or any kind of outage, freeze several jugs now and rotate them through your freezer. A few days' worth of cooling sitting there waiting on you before you ever need it. That is the whole trick. No new machine, no chemicals, no bill at the end of the month. Just a fan you already own, and $1's worth of salt used the way my grandmother used it, and my grandfather before her. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me where you live and how hot it gets there in the worst part of summer, and whether you have ever had to get through a stretch of days with no power at all. I read every single comment left on this channel, every one of them, and I answer as many as I am able. Next time, I am going to show you the trick this whole idea came from in the first place. A real spring house, built the way my grandfather built his, and how running water alone, with no ice and no electricity of any kind, can keep food and a whole small room cool through the hottest month of the year. It is simpler than you would expect, and it has kept my family fed for longer than any refrigerator ever has. Until then, remember the people who built this country with their hands, new things we are only just starting to remember.